And we're live. Howdy, y'all. This is Rational Outlaw, and you're watching Rational News live. Now, why don't my guests introduce themselves?
Hello, I'm Eisenwolf.
All right. Now, today's main topic will be on the Las Vegas shooting and gun control. And of course, we'll have some minor topics throughout the stream. What would you like to start with?
I say that for now, we skip the actual Vegas shooting and all of the conspiracies around it because that is interesting, and I want to get a few more people on here before we delve into that.
Hmm.
I think it'd be really cool to just talk about just gun control and gun accessory control as well, such as bump stocks and suppressors.
Okay. Did you want to start it?
Yeah, sure. So I actually did not know what a bump stock was completely until just recently, as I've never owned one and I've never known anybody to own one. Um, and after finding out what it is and what it does, I'm torn on it. Uh, I I personally think that we should have a strict interpretation of the Second Amendment, and technically citizens should be allowed to drive like tanks. Now, at the same time, I also understand that as much as I do think it should be interpreted literally, the society I would like to live in, I would like if nobody had access to a fully automatic weapon, even the police, like literally just the military. Because, in all honesty, that doesn't make that huge of a difference unless you're actually fighting a war or if you're going to go and shoot a bunch of unarmed people. And the bump stock allows that to happen when it comes to fully automatic. So that's why I'm torn on it, because I think that yes, it should be constitutional, but personally, I'd rather if nobody had it. So
Mhm. Do you think you could show an example? Because I'm not exactly sure what a bump stock is supposed to be.
I actually still don't know exactly how it works, but it's just a really simple attachment. It's completely legal in most states to buy. You just, you attach it to the gun and it makes it shoot in a way very similar to a fully automatic. So essentially it shoots. Um, I don't know if it makes it a as a like hairpin trigger where it just shoots much faster, or if it like shoots two or three bullets like in a
Hmm.
3 round burst or something. So actually, yeah, let me look it up. I just know that it makes the shooting much faster.
Hmm. Interesting.
All right, I'm gonna try to not find a video that says what it is. Here we go. Here's an article. Oh, it makes it so that okay, it looks like every time you pull the trigger, the um, recoil of the gun goes pushes the trigger and the gun into the stock, making it fire a second round every time you pull the trigger. So it essentially helps you shoot twice as fast.
Hmm.
Uh, but essentially, the gun just looks like it goes backwards into the stock, and that somehow makes it shoot a second time. I'm not the most gun savvy person. I own a few firearms, but I'm very,
Hmm.
it's simplistic firearms. I own a pistol, I own a shotgun. My dad owns an AR, but that
Hmm.
is my dad. So
I don't own any guns, so my parents own some guns, but nothing anything like big or anything.
oh yeah, my wife owns a little 38, but
Oh, you're married?
yes,
How old are you then?
I am 24.
Oh, you married young.
Yes. Yeah, the little 38 is goodness, it's tiny. I got it right in front of me.
Hmm. Interesting. You're only a year older than me.
Yes, but I'm an old person at heart. So,
Oh yeah, you seem much older.
I oh, no, this isn't a 38, it's a 25. The heck? So it's one sliver smaller than a 38.
Hmm.
Okay. Learned something new. I didn't buy it for her, so. But yes, I was a 45 when I was 12. So
Interesting.
I was telling people to turn their music down. Stop being such rascals, hoodlums.
All right. Insane said he was going to join us later. He's just finishing up some homework, I guess.
Ew. Homework.
The homework.
Yeah. I haven't had to worry about that in a couple years now, so.
Hmm.
Ew.
I'm still going to school, so I don't have any job right now. I just go to school. So I have homework after this stream I have to get back to.
Ha. No, I'm probably going to go back to school uh, because I've got enough to where I could just go back and get a degree in a year or a second degree in a year or so just because of my credits. But mostly because a theater degree does not get you much in terms of the real world. So I'm probably going to go back and get something a little bit more concrete.
Mm-hmm. So what exactly do you do for work?
Two things. One, I am in the fitness industry, but I also help with electrical contracting work.
Oh, that reminds me. You said you were going to be going to Puerto Rico, I believe, to help with the aid relief or something.
Yes. I will be connecting the cell towers back to the grid to allow for emergency calls and communications just in general back on the island so people can have internet, phones, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Do we know any particular reason why it was taking so long to go out and help Puerto Rico? I don't think it's because Trump is a racist or anything like that, but I am curious as to why it took a bit of time.
Because Puerto Rico has a very, very bureaucratic government that literally isn't allowing stuff, which is why over a week ago you saw the mayor of San Juan say Trump needs to do something. We're starving in front of literal tons of food on pallets um, with a shirt saying we're dying or we're starving or whatever it said.
Mm-hmm.
And so like that just shows you that it's and like the military has pretty much like several like military barges of boats stocked with food, stocked with water, stocked with all kinds of supplies to help people, but they just can't enter the island due to Puerto Rico just not accepting it for some reason. Like everything is just halted
Mm-hmm.
and no one knows why exactly. Like it's all right there, but that's why the people are still just, having a heck of a time recuperating. Like they should have been back on their feet by now.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So, so what the media been trying to say with obviously is incorrect about Trump. So it's just the fact that the bureaucracy with the Puerto Rico's government has been preventing the aid getting to them.
Yeah, because it is essentially a state in its structure, but it's also a country, and so it has the two layers of stuff to get through. And we are a foreign nation when it comes to offering FEMA and offering our supplies. Oddly enough, for no reason, like I hate our relationship with Puerto Rico and Guam,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we have more. We have more territories than that, actually.
We have Guam. I don't know what the other ones were. I can't not remember. I think we have a portion of the Virgin Islands, wasn't it? Or is that
Yes, yes, the U.S. Virgin Islands, the Mariana Islands, and Samoa.
where are those exactly? I have never really looked to see where they are.
I don't know. I'm gonna look up to see where they are. Okay. There's a couple islands south of Hawaii, real small.
Hmm.
Uh, the North Mariana Islands are right above Guam, and Samoa's out in the Pacific too. So pretty much all of our territories, minus Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands, are just specks in the Pacific Ocean.
Hmm. Interesting. By the way, how big is Hawaii exactly? Is it bigger than Puerto Rico or
I think it's smaller. With all the islands combined, I think it's still smaller than Puerto Rico.
hmm. And isn't the main reason why Puerto Rico hasn't become a state, if I recall, is because Puerto Rico has not wanted to become a state? Because if I recall, every time they tried to vote until recently, the people of Puerto Rico in the majority sense did not want to become a state.
I think so. I think the last actually no, Hawaii is slightly bigger when you get all the islands combined than Puerto Rico.
But not probably much.
No, I mean they're both under 4,000 square miles, which is not very big.
Exactly how many people are on Puerto Rico? Is it like a few thousand or is it a few million?
It's 3.4 million. So if every single person in Puerto Rico were to come to the United States, they would make up about 1% of the United States population.
So that's actually quite a large size of a population for a small island.
Yeah, for an island that small, it's very densely populated.
That's more densely populated and everything than some of our states. Because I think what one of our some of our states have only in the hundreds of thousands, not millions.
Yeah, like Wyoming, for example, only has 500,000 people.
Hmm.
Alaska has under 100,000 people. Montana only has one. So yeah, Puerto Rico would be like our probably 12th or something ish around that populated state.
What is the requirements? Because I cannot remember exactly what the requirements. I remember going through it in history requirements to become a state, but I can't remember what they are. Do you know?
No, I do not. I haven't taken a history class in about 4 years. I took like 3 history classes in my first 2 semesters
Hmm.
of college, but I didn't take any more after that, except for um, uh, history of the Old South. That was an interesting course. It actually ended with the Civil War. That's how they consider the Old South. So that didn't do a whole lot when it came to territories.
Hmm. Interesting.
Um, I can't seem to find. Oh wait, here we go. So if Puerto Rico were to become a state, it would be actually it would be our 30th most populated state. So it would be more populated than our 20 other ones.
Hmm. Interesting. I mean, because yeah, if you look at the um a population map, kind of like a population density, you will see that most like in the middle there's like pretty much no one, but on the coast there's everyone.
Yes.
Like it's just I mean, is it just people just like being near oceans, or is it also a large portion because of the weather, or what is it exactly?
It's twofold. Puerto Rico, apparently, I haven't gone there yet, but I've heard from a couple people because I actually have not looked into Puerto Rico a whole lot. It's always been something that I've never cared too much about. But I heard that it's very mountainous in the center, so like people just don't really tend to live on the mountains. And the cities being right on the coast, it's easy for ports, it's easy for fishing, it's easy for just beach resorts. People coming in and they want to visit, they want to hang out on the beach in Puerto Rico. It's the
So I
crystal
guess,
clear blue waters and stuff of the Bahamas and
so I
Caribbean.
guess, so I guess within like the United States, the main reason why people want to be at the coast is because of the ocean. So I guess it is probably a sense that because
Yeah, but
if
I mean, like Puerto Rico is so small that you're always near the ocean to the point where you're not going to have a drought
oh
or
yeah,
something like they would in like the center, the Midwest, our flyover states. Like they're far away from the ocean, so far so that they have to worry about droughts, and there's not a whole lot of trees, and it's flat. So I mean, it's just hard to do anything there.
What I've always found interesting is how conservatives, like Republicans and whatnot, tend to be in the farther away from the ocean and in not as much in large cities, like Democrats tend to be near the ocean and in large cities, like more in the coasts.
Yes, and that's actually I think that it's strictly to do with cities and how cities grow more so than the actual location. Cities obviously grow towards the coast because that's where we first settled, and then as technology advanced after the settlements, it was simply trade, and it's really easy to trade over water compared to land. So along rivers, along coasts, in bays and such as that, that's really where cities throughout history in general tend to be. And when cities grow, population gets a little bit further away from nature, you could say. Like if you're a farmer, you're pretty darn close to nature. And when the further you are from nature, the further you are disconnected from, I would want to say something along the lines of like the human spirit, our natural state. And the further you get from the natural state of a human surviving in nature, the more disconnected you are with, self-worth and trying to earn things the old-fashioned way. And you just get into this state where you just want things given to you because everything becomes so fast-paced. You take everything for granted, and that's why people start to get real rude in cities, because you stop becoming a member of your society and you start becoming, an ant trying to not die. And it becomes far more brutal, far more selfish. And the state tends to provide more things because you're not farming. You're not growing your own food. You're not searching for your own food. You're not building your own house. You're doing everything as a job that's a middleman. Everything in a city is a middleman job. And when you're a middleman, you don't actually have a purpose. So I have a whole big, theory and philosophy on why cities are liberal, but it's mostly because they're disconnected from life. That's also typically why they tend to be more atheists live in cities than in the country. Just everything that makes the people typically vote Democrat, typically. And then in other countries, it'd be other feelings or other parties. But typically, the more traditional citied you become, the further you go from everything that would be considered traditional. And as you saw, I care very deeply about tradition.
Yeah, I saw your 8 values. You actually quite you quite very well lean into tradition.
Yeah, and that's mostly just because I think that people that existed before us, more than 4 generations ago, like further than that, they did things for a reason, and it typically wasn't just because. Like prayer and meditation isn't just to communicate with, a God that you may or may not believe in. It's also just a state of potentially even healing your body. And typical ways of dress show modesty more so than just being what you have to wear. It's just, simple things like that. They did it for a reason, and you don't have to agree with the reason, but it typically led to a happier society. And the more we throw out tradition, the more we throw out who we were. And if we don't know who we are, we don't know where we're going. So which direction is progress if you don't know which way you're going?
Yeah, I would agree. My only thing was with traditions is how I looked at it is I like to keep traditions. However, if there's a particular tradition that has certain problems with it, then I would think maybe we should change it or not do this particular thing anymore.
Oh no, yeah. Every single tradition, everything that you do is open to scrutiny, is open to questioning, is opening to how can we make it better. I hate when things are like, no, we can't change it. Why? Because that's the way it's always been. And it's like, but maybe it's not the best way. I understand that. I'm like, I would hate to be in a place that says, no, we can't change it because that's the way it's always been. But I also hate living in a society which I feel is slightly more progressive than traditional, in which we say, that's the way we used to do things, which means it's old, which means dumb, which means we have to do something different. Like, you don't always have to change things. And being progressive, I feel like, is the consistent state of fixing things that aren't broken.
Mm-hmm. Like the electoral college, people wanting to try and get rid of it entirely and going with a popular vote, saying that the electoral college is archaic and like that is somehow an excuse to go for the popular vote because it's old.
Yeah, or people saying the Constitution is outdated and now we are, we've evolved beyond what the Constitution was written for. And people use that for everything. They say so much X amount of time has passed, therefore things are somehow different, and we can't listen to the ancient wisdom of our forefathers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just true across the board. Whether it's like if you're religious, like if you're Jewish or Christian or even Muslim or Buddhist, people are like, yeah, but people did that 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago. Who cares? They're all dead. Obviously, they're dumb because we're around now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no, not really. That's not how it works. Time is as linear as it may be, does not mean that things change the more time goes by.
Mm-hmm. So, did you want to discuss the 8 values tests and like I guess different things about it, like the different portions?
Oh yeah, let me find where I posted that so I can pull it up on the computer. I wish I could filter to only see things that I posted.
Mm-hmm. My thing with my problem with Twitter, if you, is you can't go directly just to the photos. It brings all these other different things that aren't really photos up. Like I just want to find the photo I posted, not some GIF I posted 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. No, I understand that. Let me go to the Hangouts. Can I post a picture in this?
The Hangouts,
I cannot.
you can screen share it.
Let me see if I can do something else real quick. Yeah, we can go through. If you want, we can go through your results before we go through mine and discuss where those differences lie. Or we can just look at both briefly and see where the differences are and just discuss the differences and why we think we got the differences, because it's too many questions.
Okay, let me see if I can find mine. Mm, do, do. Okay. Okay, I think I'm gonna have to go to different site to find it because I don't think I'm gonna be able to find it in Twitter fast enough.
Like I scrolled up in the our group chat thing and found mine, and then I just opened it in another tab.
So you're also very nationalist as well. I mean, I'm pretty nationalist, I guess, according to mine last I saw, but I'm not like as nationalist as you are.
Yeah, and I say that all of these are give or take about 5%. Especially my liberty versus authority. I felt like that one's a little skewed. And I feel like my leaning towards tradition skewed authority a little bit. Because I definitely would rather have, a very good balance of liberty and authority. And I think that rests around 50-50, maybe even leaning towards liberty in some aspects.
Mm-hmm.
So that one's the only one I feel like is off, but it still says moderate, so I'm fine.
Yeah, my thing, when I took it, I felt the liberty was a bit low for me. I mean, it's still majority, but my version, it felt a little bit low for me. I felt I'm more in like the 70s, not the 60s of
Mhm.
liberty.
The problem with the test is, yeah, there are things that I would prefer to be in a society, but that doesn't necessarily mean I would want to make a rule or a law about not doing it that way. I would rather it just be kind of like a taboo than a law. And I feel like the test says, "Oh, you like it this way? That means you want the law to be that way."
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no, no. I just like things to be more social uh, faux pas than laws.
Okay, I'm gonna try and see if I can. I don't know how I can. Okay, why don't we just go through yours first?
Okay.
Okay. Hold on. I'm gonna see if I can present yours to everyone. Okay, there we go. So it looks like we have. Let me see. Okay, so like yeah, for my national, I'm barely going into more national at 58.5%, while it says you are around 78.7%. And I felt the same with my liberty, but because my liberty shows for the eight values is 60%, and I feel like I'm more around 70%. Like I'm not a super like I'm not um what was it called, min anarchist or anything like that, because I still believe we still need more laws than just what a min anarchist wants.
Yeah, they went like almost zero.
Mm-hmm. However, I feel the markets portion, because the markets portion for me I feel is pretty accurate. I have 81.1%. That's the one where I went very strong for markets, because I am quite pro business, especially small business. I'm more so in the interest of small businesses and not big businesses. I have a problem with big businesses personally. I feel they can slow down progress or take advantage of people.
They typically hurt the economy more than they help it. Um, and I agree with that 100%, which is why, as somebody that is very pro capitalism, they'll say, "Oh, you're pro capitalism. Well, then you must hate Teddy Roosevelt." And it's like, no, actually, I think what Teddy Roosevelt did was exactly what he needed to do. Um, the markets were no longer free because 12 or 13 businesses owned every single aspect of almost everything you could do, and now people aren't working for themselves anymore. There is no capitalism. He broke those monopolies up so that capitalism could succeed and didn't just become a couple monopolies just running your life. That's not capitalism anymore.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah, I think that was very much needed to break up the monopolies, because, as we already know, monopolies stifle progression. I mean,
yeah,
despite what ANCAPs think, I don't think having no government would help prevent monopolies, and just going just by voting with your dollar. Voting with your dollar does a lot, obviously, but I think there needs to be some restrictions to prevent monopolies forming.
yeah, like if you were to vote with your dollar against Google, good luck at this point. Like, seriously, good luck. It's almost impossible to not benefit or give money to Google in some way at this point in time. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it owns too much, and
Yeah,
that has nothing to do with the government. That's literally just because it worked outside of it. And
yeah.
now, good luck. So obviously, the markets never fully regulate themselves, and that's why I feel like I have a little bit more equality. Not in total. I'm still definitely 64% pro market,
Mm-hmm.
but I have the 36 because you need some things in line to stop businesses from getting so big. Like, nobody benefits from Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody. Like, it literally just moves into a town, and then it puts 5 or 6 smaller businesses out of business, hires the exact same amount of people that worked for those small businesses, because every single Walmart's horrifically understaffed if you've ever been in any of them. They
Hmm.
have 14 checkout lines and 3 of them are occupied. You need help finding something? Good luck. There's one guy walking the entire store.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so, they put 10 businesses that each hired, somewhere between 2 and 6 people, and then they shut all of those businesses out and then hire, 30 or so people
Hmm.
and then pay them all minimum wage. So it doesn't really help a town if it's dying. It does either nothing or negative. It doesn't do anything positive. And so I feel like, and the owner of it's making however many uh, hundreds of millions of dollars a year or whatever the heck he's making yearly, something stupid. Maybe it's only 20 million. I don't
20
remember.
million is still a lot.
Yeah, like if you're making $20 million a year, that's stupid. And I don't necessarily think that taxes should be higher when you make so much. I think it just be harder to have a business that is literally international,
Hmm.
to the point that Walmart is. And that's just because on a practical scale, like if your product is just that good, someone else is going to be able to make it somewhere.
Hmm.
Like you're a human being. You're not God. You're not going to be able to create something perfect. Somebody else is going to be able to create something pretty darn close.
Hmm.
And if a business gets bigger than regional, like for example, if something is big enough to be in the southeast, like they have openings all the way from Georgia to Virginia to Mississippi. That's as big as a business needs to get,
Hmm.
because now they're going to have to start accepting and lowering their standards to meet the lowest bar, but also increasing all of the red tape to meet the highest bureaucratic area, which is why it's,
Hmm.
impossible to get anything done in a branch of a major organization like a Home Depot, for example. It's international. And because of that, its laws are the same everywhere. So, because Australia has some weird law against not doing this, people in South Dakota at a Home Depot can't do that thing. And it's just like, that's not helping anybody.
Hmm.
But I mean, in general, I would love if everyone just had a bunch of small businesses. I am definitely pro small business, free market to an extent.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's one of the major things I probably would disagree with you on more. I don't know. But yeah, I'm very, I guess, but I felt I was pretty accurate. How I felt was I'm just more for the small businesses as like you are. I'm not exactly sure where I differ. Like, what did you answer for some of the questions?
Oh, I don't remember the questions. I took this test probably about 3 or 4 months ago. But it was like, if it had to do with anything and it came to corporations, I think the idea of a corporation is kind of stupid.
Hmm.
Like, if you can't run your business personally, that means you're not a good enough business person. So opening up to a corporation and having a team of people essentially just make the money off of a idea, that's not really how a job's supposed to go. A job is supposed to have, it's a pyramid, and when you expand the top of the pyramid, you just expand the bottom of the pyramid.
Hmm.
Um, and it starts becoming more of an organization and almost a small government in and of itself, if especially if it gets powerful enough. Like, uh,
Yeah, yeah. Like cellular companies. If anyone has any problem, it's the like cellular companies because there's only there's Sprint, T-Mobile, Verizon, and AT&T. They own the vast majority of the market, and they all have their problems with customer service and everything.
yeah. Plus, once the bigger you get and the less competition you have, the more sloppy you can get, and there's no competition because they buy it out.
Hmm.
And when the reason I hate corporations is because it's too easy for a corporation to get so big that it can just start eating the competition instead of competing against the competition. It's like if you're like, all right, all 10 of you, whoever can make the best product at the best price with the best customer service wins. And somebody pulls out a gun, kills 7 of the other people, and then the other 3 says, yes, we'll work for you. Like, oh, yeah, that's free market. No, that's not how it's supposed to work. And that's what corporations allow people to do. They allow people to grow bigger than they're supposed to be able to. And the bigger it grows, the more powerful it gets. The more powerful it gets, the more it can stomp out competition.
Another thing I heard from ANCAPs is they were trying to say that and if the people don't notice the corporations doing something bad, the media will point it out. You seriously gonna trust the media, the one that's bought by corporations?
Every single major or mainstream media outlet is owned by somebody. It is in and of itself a business, which is typically owned by another business. I mean, between Google, Amazon, Monsanto, and some of the bigger oil companies, they own everything. Or okay, Disney, Monsanto, Google, Amazon, and then I think there's only 2 or 3 legitimate oil corporations worldwide.
There's also P&G. Don't they own, I think, one of them?
Possibly. Procter and Gamble. Actually, I think Procter and Gamble is owned by something else.
Really?
And like that's what's weird is like every major corporation that you can think of is still owned by another bigger corporation.
Yeah, that was also
like thing. It's like fake competition. Like Coke and Pepsi are owned by the same company. It's not actual competition. It's just fake competition to drive up the one company's profits.
Are you sure about that? I don't recall Coke and Pepsi being owned by the same company in a larger sense.
As far as like another company that owns shares, they own majority shares in both companies. So they're technically not owned, but because of,
you're saying
the absolutely ridiculous.
So they own the shares. They're not like merged companies or anything like that. They just own the shares. Which
no, yeah, they just function as if they were because of stocks, which I also think is stupid. I think stocks is stupid, and I think corporations is stupid. I think both of those ideals, if they went away, capitalism would be perfect. But because of those things written into law, and could still be practiced whether there was law or not, what makes capitalism, that's what gives it its flaws. That's what gives it its things that people can point to and pretend like communism somehow better. Because they just like they cling onto those flaws and they're just like, yes, this means capitalism will always fail. And it's like, well, yeah, it's got its downs, but in general, it is better. And if you could write laws that did say that you can't have a corporation, you either own your business, and there's no such thing as stocks, capitalism would work. Now, nobody would be, super wealthy, but more people would have a living that they actually enjoy doing. Like they own they're their own boss. They work with some friends and they provide a singular, simple thing that they're a professional in to their society. Like I'm a professional furniture maker. I'm a professional electrician, plumber, carpenter. All those things now become a singular business instead of that one company that owns the flooring, the carpentry, the shutters, the doors, the windows, all the glass and mirrors. All of that comes from the same company now because it's just owns that corner of the market.
Yeah, that was another thing I think I had problems with some corporations is how they've just grabbed everything. Like, let's just take a Procter and Gamble for a sec. They own almost every single cleaning product. They own Tide. They own I forget the other names of the other ones, but they own like almost every single cleaning product, and then they own other things under that, and it's just these companies are branched so far out that they own virtually just about everything.
Yeah, like I knew that some of the major cleaning companies were all owned by the same parent company, and that's something I hate is parent companies.
But yeah, like P&G, Procter and Gamble owns like they own Tide, they own what are some of the other ones? Downy or not Downy?
Dawn,
and they own Clorox. They own all those major brands you would see in a supermarket or anything like that. They own pretty much everything there in the cleaning department. in the cleaning your clothes, cleaning whatever.
Oh yeah. So Pepsi, I'm looking it up because I know somewhere I learned that Pepsi and Coke were owned by the same company. Now I'm looking into it. Um, Pepsi owns itself. It owns Frito-Lay, Quaker, Gatorade, Tropicana, a few other businesses. So like, it owns Mountain Dew, and therefore it owns well, Frito-Lay I think is what owns Doritos.
Mm-hmm.
Like when people are like, Mountain Dew is teaming up with Doritos to bring you this gaming fuel package. It's like, oh, so Pepsi is selling me two of their own products.
Yeah. It's like they're making an illusion as to that they're teaming up, but in reality, they're owned by the same group. I guess you could say the same company.
Let's see. So stock market wise, PepsiCo and the Coca-Cola company are two separate, stock companies.
Mm-hmm.
And stock market wise, they've been competing for 112 years, or actually no longer than that, 124 years they've been competing. That's insane. See, what the heck is with these businesses that last for 124 years? Well, that just shows that they're so far gone from what their original purpose was. They just became this giant money machine rather than whatever it was supposed to be. Now it's just a name that owns, a quarter of the things that you buy. It's not actually a company.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a company is like a candy store that's been open for 100 years because the same generation or the same family has been running it for generations. That's a business that's been around for 124 years.
Mm-hmm. Sort of
124-year-old like owner of 24% of what you buy it's just a business that owns businesses. It doesn't actually do anything.
Yeah, what you're describing is something similar to this restaurant that's in the city I live in. It's over 100 years old, and it's been passed through different owners. It's not owned by any company. It's just like different people have sold it this particular restaurant off, and it's one of the oldest restaurants in LA County, I believe.
Yeah. Oh, actually, it says right here that as of 2009, PepsiCo and its sub companies accounts for 39% of all food, snack, and beverage sales in the United States.
I think that's just too high.
One company is accountable for over a third of what you buy in the grocery store.
At the most, a company should perhaps in the market, I think, is 5%.
Yeah, I think 5% is about right, and that would be like, wow, that's a big company, because there should always be like as a nation, especially the size of the United States, there should be hundreds of people competing.
Mm-hmm.
And that way, it's like, oh, well, here's the top 10 best brands. Like, but right now there is no top 10 best brands. There's just brands owned by other brands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, like it's always interesting how people always say you're just for because you're for capitalism, because you're just for big businesses. No, I'm not. I'm for the small businesses. Like whenever they say to raise minimum wage, they always bring up McDonald's pays their employees too little or Walmart pays them too little. Yeah, okay. But yeah, they might not be affected by raising the minimum wage, but a small business will. Small businesses have much more razor thin profit margins than a large company. A large company can more easily, I think, find a way to, well, make money or save money or whatnot.
I mean, they're already cutting every corner they possibly can by getting through their large corporation loopholes. Like, oh, if you employ over 150 people, you can do this. Or if you have more than this many locations open, you can now do this. You can buy in bulk so high that it actually cuts your, cost to profit ratios, like, or it costs your costs in half. and you can make more profit for selling something the exact same price as somebody that can't buy in that size of bulk because they're not that big of a company.
Yeah, that was my problem with like minimum wage, because if you take an economics class, people would learn that minimum wage is not a good idea. Minimum wage does not help the economy.
No, I would be okay if it just disappeared. I think that as a society, we have grown to the point where we would be lost without it because of the laws literally created afterwards that would just go null and void if we got rid of it. So I think that if we had some kind of cool, like, 20-year phase out period or something, we could potentially get rid of it. But like, if it's here, it needs to go up, but it also needs to only go up if we have massive red tape cutting and regulation cutting and tax cuts for people with what are classified as smaller businesses, people that employ under 100 people. Well, and even more cuts for people that employ under, I think it's 49 is if you employ more than 49, that's when you start getting into you have to provide health care and all these things.
Quite frankly, I'm for small businesses providing healthcare. Actually, I personally don't believe any business should be required to provide healthcare, even if it's a large company. I think I'm more for the company to make that choice, basically.
I think if the government did its job in public schools, we wouldn't need health insurance at all. Like, if they simply taught people how to be healthy, then because most deaths outside of old age in the United States are caused by preventable diseases or accidents. Accidents, that's going to happen. You're going to die if it's an accident. And it's just automatically lethal. Like, you fell from a 30-story building. Healthcare is not going to help you if you fall from a 30-story building. I don't care what insurance you have. But accidents aside, old age aside, I'm going to look up a specific number so I'm not just spitballing.
Well, yeah, most deaths are caused by obesity, or not most, but a large percentage are caused by obesity. I'm not exactly sure what other preventable things other than smoking, but smoking I don't think is as big as it was 50 years ago.
Oh man.
Yeah, the never-ending mirroring.
How do I stop the screen share?
There should be something just to stop it. It looks like it stopped on my end from what I can see.
Okay, good. Deaths caused by what was I looking up? Oh, preventable diseases. Or no, not diseases specifically. All right, yeah, I'm going to do death caused by obesity in the U.S. Yeah, obesity is the second leading cause of preventable death in the United States, close behind tobacco use. So, like, between smoking, drinking, and just general poor health, eating the wrong foods and not getting enough exercise, we would cut down on probably the 5 biggest causes of death in the United States. And a lot of those things, like, I would imagine that the numbers of people that die, for every person that dies from these diseases, there are at least 3 other people currently on some sort of medication trying to prevent the death, like in the exact same field. Like, if there's, for every person every year that dies of heart failure caused almost specifically because of obesity, there's at least 3 other people that are on some form of medication that they couldn't afford if it wasn't for healthcare. So, and I know the numbers are probably higher than 3. I'm just saying there's at least 3. So, if we just taught a better, well-being as far as health goes in our schools, we wouldn't be so fat of a country, and we wouldn't be so unhealthy, and healthcare wouldn't be that big of a deal. And even then, we could have universal healthcare if we had a healthier population.
Well, I'm gonna have to disagree somewhat with that. I don't. Maybe it is. Maybe if you look at certain countries, I don't know. But last I recall during economics classes, when my teacher, when he discussed about healthcare, that was just becoming one of the topics. It's not very sustainable. The only way you can sustain a healthcare system is if you have a continuously growing workforce.
Ah,
You have to have a continuously growing population of a workforce. So that's the only way you could possibly sustain it. If you don't have a continually growing workforce, it's not going to work.
well then, never mind. I was just talking about like maybe if everybody was super healthy. Like I haven't had health insurance in years.
Mm-hmm.
When I turned 18, uh, it got canceled, and I just never renewed it. I've paid the fine several years in a row now because it's still cheaper than getting a health insurance
Oh yeah,
because
yeah.
I take care of myself, and I encourage everybody I know to do the same similar things as me. You know, with a little bit of variance from person to person. Um, and you know, like my parents are in their 50s, and they both look like they're in their early 30s. Like they just were a very healthy family, and it's because of not even genetics, because every single one of our relatives are very sick. So
Mm-hmm.
we just, you know, we're just taking good care of ourselves. And
Oh yeah, that's one of the big things. Genetics plays into it somewhat, but the most of it is eating well and exercising and stretching, all of
yeah,
that.
you know, I mean, and it goes a little bit beyond just exercise and a healthy diet, but not much, not much. Like
Mm-hmm.
you do those things, you have general awareness of your surroundings, you're going to be okay. Uh, and you know, at that point, accidents will be so rare that they're not going to cost you, you know, $15,000 to get a cast because you broke your arm.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's ridiculous. It wasn't $15,000. My parents, I remember my dad has a story where he broke his collarbone, and the doctors were like, "Well, we can put your arm in a sling," and he was like, "Nah, I can make a sling myself." And he spent nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Like now, if you just got that same thing because you took the doctor's time, you went in, you pay the copay for their time, and insurance, you know, pays for you going in, and it was an accident. So even if you take nothing from the doctor and go through the same scenario, your premiums probably went up, and you had to pay a copay just to see the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
So like the insurance companies, all they did was just make it a big bureaucratic mess. I hate bureaucracy.
Oh yeah, I do
Is
too.
my thing. I hate when companies are made specifically to create a middleman for the sake of economic progress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I and I know that like those things are needed for continuous economic growth, but I also don't care about economic growth. I I I despise modern society as a whole, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And most of my ideas probably don't work in practice. This is just the way things are, so I'd have to get used to it.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, as for healthcare, the only way to sustain healthcare by a government is a continually growing workforce. So, like the United States, it's not going to work for us for multiple reasons. Obviously, one is the fact that we have too many unhealthy people, and the other is the fact we're barely still growing in a workforce. The reason why we're actually growing in in population is because of immigration. Like if I recall, if you were to look at the white population, the population that is dropping in population. But however, the Hispanic population and Black population are still growing, especially the Hispanic population. Hispanic population is going to be much bigger within the next couple decades if it continually grows with how many children they have. And
Yeah.
I have no problem with other races. That's not my thing. My only problem is the fact that is the culture because they trying to with Hispanic population they try to keep the Hispanic culture too much. I think too strongly.
Yeah, and I have no problem with other cultures, but if you're coming from one culture to another because the one that you're going to is better, then maybe you should drop some things from your old culture. Like if I were to go to Japan because I thought Japan was better than the United States, I would try my darndest to assimilate because obviously I moved to the better culture. So why would I bring mine if it sucked?
Hmm.
Like, and I feel like a lot of our immigrants don't bring that.
Hmm.
They bring a strong sense of nationalism from where they came. I believe that you should have a strong sense of nationalism of where you go.
Yeah, I think it's different with Hispanics, but when I don't know, maybe maybe it is the same, maybe it isn't. But with like whenever I would see um, Asian families in media and whatnot, I mean, obviously they still keep a large portion of their culture. However, they still seem to quite relatively assimilate to American culture. Like the Asian parents, like first generation, will uh, uh, try to get their kids to assimilate into the culture. Rather, with Hispanic population, they don't so readily push for that, which I find interesting.
Yeah, they seem to like love the fact that they came from particularly Mexico. I don't see a whole lot of nationalistic pride in people from Guatemala or El Salvador or places like that. It's just Mexico
Yeah, that
where they have this extreme like, haha, we're from Mexico and we came here illegally on purpose and we're never letting go of our culture. And it's like, so you're just extending Mexico, the place you ran away from? How what?
yeah, I always found that ridiculous. I think there was like one post I've seen a few times where it shows like a cartoon where this Mexican guy saying, waving the flag, "Fuck you, America, Viva la Mexico," or whatever,
Mhm.
and then like a police guy comes and say, "Oh no, don't please don't send me back to Mexico."
Yeah. It's like, oh, so you love it until you have to go there. I see. I don't know. I'll never understand. Like the whole refugee crisis is the same thing, where they're fleeing their crappy place of life, where their culture is heavily to blame, not entirely to blame, but the current status of their culture caused whatever conflict they're fleeing from,
Hmm.
and they're trying to bring that exact same culture with them, with zero integration.
Hmm.
The conflict's going to continue. Like it's not going to help anybody.
Yeah, it's also the same with bringing in their politics, like people, minorities from south of the who come from south of the border, they bring their politics because they tend to vote more Democrat. And which, quite frankly, if you've lived in a socialist country, why are you wanting to vote for more socialist programs if you know it doesn't work?
What tends to be the like almost every single I've met I think a dozen or so people from other countries. I've met two people from Nigeria, a man from Kenya, three people from Mexico. There was one from Venezuela,
Hmm.
another one from I can't remember, but somewhere else in Central or South America. I've met several people from other countries legally,
Hmm.
and all of them vote Republican.
Hmm.
No matter where they're from, they vote Republican because they love the United States, which is why they came here.
Hmm.
Actually, I do know two people that were illegal, and one of them didn't care, and the other one did vote Democrat. Um, so it's the illegal ones that come here and vote Democrat because they know the Democrats give them benefits. That
Hmm.
the Democratic Party is the one that runs off of welfare, and the welfare is still somehow given to an extent to illegal aliens. So they're going to vote for the party that helps their interest, regardless on or not. They're still going to try to get the party that holds their interest, which you can't say that's stupid. They're voting in their best interest. They're not
Yeah.
voting against themselves. That would be dumb. But that's the same thing as saying about
Did your mic quit?
to happen. So just because a group wants something to happen doesn't mean that you should listen to that group,
Hmm.
especially if they're criminals. Like They've already committed their crime. So
Oh, yeah, I would agree. Uh, by the way, how long have you been married?
2.5 years. Yeah.
Hmm. So your third year will be next year.
Yes. In the spring.
Hmm. It's interesting, like just thinking that you're only a year older than me, and you just give off the presence. I know you said it that you have an old kind of an old soul, but you just sort of give off the presence of a much more uh, older person.
Well, when I was a child, my favorite channel was the History Channel. Uh, I remember I was like, it was I don't remember exactly how old I was, but I was under 8 because of where my parents lived per house. And I was watching the History Channel. It was about World War II, and my dad just came in and he was just like, "Wow, okay," because I like chose to watch that. It was more intriguing to watch that than I don't know whatever like Ren and Stimpy or whatever the heck was on.
Hmm.
I was like, cartoons are dumb. Show people bombing each other, and I was able to retain why they bombed each other. So
Hmm. Interesting. What are your feelings on the bombing when we bombed Japan to do that to end the war?
I think that as far as World War II is concerned, uh, Russia and the United States are tied for the worst war crimes committed. Because Russia, yeah, I mean, minus the killing of their own citizens and soldiers, like I'm just going to brush that to the side because they were awful to their own people. But what they did to Germany after they won resulted in almost as many deaths as the Holocaust by the Germans. And it was entirely almost 100% citizens. I mean, they leveled cities after the war was over. The bombing continued. And what we did with to Japan to end the war, like, okay, maybe we saved maximum 10,000 lives of our soldiers, which is a lot. But how
Some
many
of it,
how
some
many
of it,
tens of thousands of civilians did we kill to an
yes,
already losing nation?
yes, but there have been some who have said that there would have been estimated more people who would have died if we hadn't bombed Japan. More people, even on the Japanese side, would have died. They had estimated because
Yeah, but at least that would have been of their own doing. Like we had already pushed them to their own island, and we could have just literally sieged their island,
true,
and they
but
would have lost. Like maybe it would have drawn out for 3 or 4 more years, and they may have lost more citizens, but that would have been them making their own decisions to throw their lives away instead of us dropping essentially God's fury on them.
mm,
That's the difference. Like if they want to get themselves killed, that's their choice. It's kind of like Batman and Batman Begins, where it was him and Ra's al Ghul, and he was like, "You're right. I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you." And then he flew out.
mhm.
Instead, he could have taken the American version and shot him 14 times and then killed his family. Uh, that would have been the American way to do it, and that's essentially what we did with Japan. We just said, "You know what? We're already winning. You already lost. The war is all but won. Let's just eradicate 2 of your cities and kill, tens of thousands of civilians."
Mhm. Okay, I just
Really,
wanted
that was just
to,
us, showing
I
off.
I disagree with it, but I understand your view.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, if I'm not saying that we definitely shouldn't have, I just feel like we had other options, and I feel like those other options were not explored as well as they could have. I feel like we really, really wanted to just show the world that we had the biggest bomb,
There
and
was
so we were going to bomb somebody. Hitler
that.
surrendered too soon, so we bombed Japan twice.
There was that, if I recall. I'm going off of some Prager videos. I think another reason why we bombed Japan, because they had actually thought about, I think, using it before that or something, if I recall. But anyways, another reason as to why is they were trying to show that to Russia to not mess with the United States, because I guess they were already realizing there was problems with Russia at that point. And they also, that was another secondary reason was to sort of show. They had thought about, like, I think bombing off the coast of Japan, but some of the generals felt that that wouldn't be very effective at doing much to stop the war.
Yeah, it would have been a saber rattling thing instead of an actual physical display of force. Like the guy in Indiana Jones that's just flailing around with a sword. And then he gets shot. I feel like they thought we would just look like the guy that gets shot if we tried to just do that. And Japan would be like, they're trying to scare us. That means they're scared themselves. Who knows? Obviously, we can't turn it back. I think that between the deaths to citizens, more civilians were killed by the Allies in World War II than by the Axis. Well, no, never mind. Japan killed a frick ton of Chinese people.
Well, they killed a lot of Chinese. I'm not sure if it was during the war, but Japan was very violent.
Yeah, they killed the crap out of the Koreans and the Chinese. I forgot about them. So I guess the Axis might have slightly higher civilian death counts because of Japan just slaughtering everybody. But we made sure we caught up by the end of it, which is stupid. Like, civilians should never be the target of a war. And we stooped to their level when we didn't need to. We could have taken the high road and we still could have won. And it wouldn't have been too much more of a sacrifice on our part to do so, I feel like. Especially because we just came out of that resounding win with Germany just beforehand. Like, our military was freaking confident. Like, we weren't running out of steam at all. It was a short war for us. But it happened, so I guess Truman is a genius. I don't know. Don't really like Truman. Let's see. Okay, so we've done market. We've kind of touched on tradition as well, but nationalist. What was your percentage on nationalist?
Nationalism. I think I said my nationalism was 58.5%. So it says I'm balanced according to their thing.
Yeah, balanced, leaning towards, favoring your nation.
Oh yes, I am probably pretty pro-American, and I will say if America does anything I dislike, I'm not going to side with it. So I'm not like that kind of pro.
No, yeah, I feel like we've made mistakes, and I'm happy to admit those mistakes, but I'm still very pro our country. Like, I think us entering World War I was a mistake. I feel like several things that we did before and after that were mistakes. I feel like we've made a lot of policy mistakes, but that doesn't mean I don't think that we don't still have the potential to be the greatest country. So
now there are some wars that we probably shouldn't have gotten in. However, I think they have benefited. Some of them could have been fought better, like the Vietnam War. We could have done that one better, although I don't like how they got into it. But my main problem was not even so much obviously I didn't like the fact that they got into it, but I also had a problem with how they exited out of the Vietnam War, because we could have won. All things were showing that we could have won that war, and or at least with the portion of southern Vietnam, we could have kept it from getting taken over by the communist portion by keeping this treaty that we had originally were planning to keep by just sending aid to southern Vietnam to keep them from getting taken over by northern Vietnam. Now, obviously, southern Vietnam still had its problems with its government, but I felt it was the lesser one of that of the communist regime.
Yeah. I don't really have too many disagreements with that.
Yeah. My thing was when they decided, because it was basically the Democrats who decided to not give any aid to southern Vietnam because we were going to because we had signed some, I forget what it was exactly. We signed something to give aid to Southern Vietnam. Not any troops, no more troops, but just giving them supplies. But we hardly gave them anything because we were planning on giving them much more. But then the Democrats decided not to. And one Democrat politician said, I don't care as much of the loss of life, blankety blank, as I would care as much as that as I do care about the loss of a football game or something like that, he said.
Oh.
Like something so disgusting, I thought, of him. That was my main problem. I don't like that we got into the war, but I don't like how we left it, because I felt that was not only because us not giving aid to the Southern Vietnam led to the death of 2 million more people who died in that after that. And then also I think that was disrespect to our troops who died, because basically they died for nothing.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like we could have had a better resolution of that. Well, actually, real quick. Hello, best dude. Saw that you joined.
Unpopular thought. I don't know. This is a different Google Hangout name.
What?
Nope.
Yeah, his actual channel's name is Unpopular Thought.
Yeah. I'll end up changing the Google name eventually. Because I haven't really gotten around to that yet. So.
Well, hello, Unpopular Thought.
Yeah, so it's Eisenwolf, right?
Yeah.
Have you guys talked to each other yet on
Yeah, I
here?
believe so.
I couldn't remember if you did. But yeah.
I've talked to him every time.
By the way, how's getting the a Twitter account going?
Not very good. I don't know what it is, but whenever I try to you know when you get that when you get the fucking phone call and
Mm-hmm.
and I have to put the confirmation,
Mm-hmm.
and then you put the confirmation in, and then it just says system error or something.
Hmm.
Twitter's having an error. I don't know. Maybe Google is banning people before they make a Twitter. I don't know. Fuck. I don't know. You know, I might just try and make one at someone else's house.
Interesting. Well, back to the Vietnam thing, I guess. But what do you think of how basically we broke the promise that we were going to give military weaponry to Southern Vietnam, not giving nearly as much as we said we were? Because how I feel is I felt that was, to me, just as bad, if not worse, than going even into the war itself. Because I felt that was a disrespect to our servicemen who died in that war, because basically they died for nothing, and so the war was worthless for us.
What's the shame about not just the Vietnam War, not just what we did with the breaking of that contract and giving too few weapons, and honestly, if we were going to help, we should have helped full force to make sure France didn't lose its colony.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I also am not necessarily for colonialism, so I don't really care that France lost it. So I'm torn a little bit on that. I've got two differing opinions from different sides, but and it's just so the whole world just sadly fell into completely this state of who are we going to be victimized by? Are we going to be victimized by the United States or by Russia, or I should say the USSR? And the whole world just became these two countries' battlegrounds. And so like, could we have avoided the Korean War and the Vietnam War entirely? Possibly, but what would have been the repercussions if the USSR was allowed to continue to grow? Mm-hmm. Like, was there any truth behind the domino theory? Like, would it have actually spread and taken over all those places, or would we have been able to just let it ride its course, never actually be affected by it here in the United States? And then, everybody would have realized communism was stupid. Or would everybody just be like modern day Cuba and still trying in some extent to practice it?
Or like China.
Yeah. China to a slightly lesser extent, but yes.
Yeah, at this point, like, China is more or less don't take this the wrong way. Communism is left wing, but it's like a right wing perversion of it because it's the authoritarian right and the authoritarian left. They have a tendency of becoming very similar, you know?
Yeah.
Well, similar in the sense of authoritarianism, but similar in economics, not as much.
Well, China's not really communism anymore, though.
It's
just a dictatorship at this point.
It's added a lot of more economic. It's added more economic freedom. It's still very authoritarian, but I would agree, I guess, that it's not nearly as communist as it was when it started.
But then again, you know, oh my God, communism is, you know, I found a fucking communist channel, and it did some debunks of anarcho-capitalism, and they were great criticisms, some of the best criticisms I've ever heard before. But when I started looking into why they were still communist, their theory is communism is affected ultimately by the system beforehand, and they believe that there is a possibility that this modern day system that we have might be different than the past system. Like they believe that there is a possibility, therefore we should still try. And you know that's human beings for you, constantly having hope, but this is hope in the worst thing possible, you know. It's so silly, communism.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I'm avidly against communism in the way that it's practiced. However, I completely understand why people are constantly swept away in the promises of it. I completely get it. And, you know, if I lived with, you know, like maybe 200 or 300 people somewhere, to me, the only way to function in that society properly would be the end game of communism, where you work in a tribal kind of fashion, where there's not really a government. It's pretty much just everything is popular vote. There is no one really in charge, and everybody just contributes to whatever they can, because at that point it's survival.
But the thing I love about the West is you can come here. We do take care of our sick and elderly and dying, but we, you know, we fucking, you can pursue wealth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yo?
Hello?
Yeah.
Did you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Did I say something wrong?
No, I said yeah.
Yeah, it's just the West is it's a beautiful fucking Western values are beautiful values. But anyways, I mean the thing is that's like in Japan right now there's like I made a news story about you know, eventually I might cover more details and actually look more into it. The Japanese political system is a lot. The parties are a little different. They have the right-wing party is against guns, against swords, against knives, and the traditionalist conservatives, mostly there to protect corporations, they're center-right. Like their medical system is a system that I think Canada should adopt for our surgeons. Basically, they have private businesses competing for state contracts, and so it's partially subsidized, partially privatized. And their left-wing party is Democrats, center-left party. They're not that much more left-wing. And then you have a fucking, it's more libertarian, far right, or at least from what I've read, it's far right libertarian. Trying to represent, they think they're representing the people, but most people don't really want something that far right. And then there's the fourth party, which is the Communist Party. And the Communist Party has slipped between third and fourth place multiple times. And
that's kind of troubling.
Actually, but here's a weird thing. Guess what their view is about remilitarizing?
Yeah, I think I've heard that they don't want to have a military.
Well, just about. They want to have minimal military possible. Like the right wing wants to remilitarize because they're scared that China could become a threat to them one day, and they don't know if the United States is going to have their back. Which, you know, I think Canada should be backing the. I think Canada should be backing Japan and other nations, other nations that represent freedom, rather than trying to go into bed with China with their fucking cuck dough. But yeah, they don't want to remilitarize. They just want to pretty much redistribute the wealth to everybody, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's nice not needing your own military because you're piggybacking off of someone else's. But I mean, like at the same time, Japan also doesn't want a military, not just because of the money that they get to save. Like obviously, I know that's a huge part of it. But they also they also would rather have an unmanned military.
Well, keep in mind
they currently do have a small extensive one, but they want almost everything to be drone type operations. Like their tanks would be drones, their planes would be drones, their boats would be drones.
But the thing is, there was a policy after World War II that Japan wouldn't remilitarize.
Well, yeah, there's a law in which Japan is not supposed to have a military again, because that's when we basically ruled Japan for a bit.
Yeah, you guys pretty much made that rule.
Well, no, yeah, I know. Like the United States is one that put that in contract, but it's been so many years that I mean, it would be understandable if we would definitely come to the table and like renegotiate that. It's been so long, and we've been actually extremely good allies with Japan, not necessarily militaristically, but we've been very good allies with Japan since the war ended.
You know what?
So we have good relations, and I think it'd be something that would be easily negotiated if it's what Japan wanted to do. I don't think that us and that contract are what really stands in the way of Japan anymore.
I think NATO should be the NATO members like Canada, other big countries with big militaries, like, and I mean like the top 20, top 30, top 25, top 10 militaries in the world, like UK, France. I think they should have like foreign bases rather than just putting everything on the United States' backs. You know what I mean? Like, well, I mean,
not just NATO, but like,
pardon me? Pardon me? What'd you say? Am I cutting out?
UN, essentially, like, yeah, every other nation or major nation contributes to some extent, but the United States is 90% of the world's military as far as the UN is concerned. It's ridiculous, and we do too much.
Hold on. You cut out like crazy there. So could you please re-say that? I didn't hear what you said at all. Sorry.
All right. Is it consistent now?
It's a little better, yeah. Maybe me cutting out.
Okay. Rational, did you hear everything we both said? Never mind. Can you still hear me?
Yeah. So what'd you say, man?
Oh, I said it's really annoying how not just NATO but also the UN, we are the world's military. Like we every time the UN decides something, the US goes in first, and we are at least 70% of the operations, mixed with wherever the location is, the local. But like places like Canada, the UK, Germany, France, Australia send, like collectively each 1 to 2% to help out sometimes. But like we are the world's military. And at this point, it's like, who are we fighting? Who are we protecting who against? Like what?
The real honesty,
where we're going to be on the same.
Sorry.
I was going to say, it's going to get to the point where we're on two sides of the same war, like legitimately, and not just figuratively way back into our, government conspiracies with CIA coups. It's going to be like literal and like in your face, like we're on the same side of the two sides of the same war.
How far right are you? Just wondering, like how right wing are you? How conservative are you? Like economically, I guess, and like traditionally. Just wondering.
I am very nationalistic and traditional. If you were to do like the whatever test,
8 values test.
Well, the 8 values test, yeah, I'm like right. It says right wing populist, but I don't know exactly how it defines right wing populist.
Yeah, but like how, like what I'm trying to say is like how do you want to scrap like a basic education? Do you want to scrap every? Are you like a minarchist to the point where you?
Oh no, he's definitely not. He's even less libertarian than I am.
Yeah, I believe that the government has a place. I currently believe that it's gotten too big for its place. I am definitely for small and limited government,
So,
but
okay,
I believe it has its purpose. I'm right wing, but I'm not super libertarian
okay.
or super authoritarian.
So you have no issues with helping the elderly and the disabled, then, and your veterans, I assume, right?
No,
Like,
yeah, I believe that to a limited extent, some sort of safety net needs to be in place, but I think that that mostly belongs to the private, charity should take care of it
As
at
for
least as equal as welfare, because we used to, and it was fine. We didn't decrease anyone's poverty or increase anyone's standard of living by we're super ramping up welfare and just taking the church out of it. Like nothing really improved when we
I
did
don't,
that. So
I don't
obviously,
really, personally, I don't think that would ever, honestly, you know,
yeah,
I think in the next upcoming 30 to 40 years, I could see that as a possibility, but as right now, it's hard for me to imagine. But anyways, but the thing is what I wanted to try and get around to is, okay, so I know where you stand on things.
Mhm.
Yeah, anyways, it's just, I won't lie, I've been thinking a lot about NATO and sort of the world at play. Like, even if every nation didn't spend more on military, we could have been helping more military. Like, well, Canada's fucking lining its pockets with China. We could have been maybe trying to put in trade deals instead with Japan or our allies in NATO, and actually standing by our allies rather than, just sort of increasing our enemies. Like, you guys don't know about how much Canada is in bed with China. You know, like
Nope.
Trudeau said, his favorite country is freaking China.
isn't
Mhm.
just about every Western country in bed with China?
No, no, no. This guy takes it to another level. Didn't I tell you guys he sold military technology that may have held that been selling. We've been selling laser technology to you guys that the Chinese might not be aware of, and we sold it to China. And CSIS warned Canada not to do this, and this could threaten Canada and the United States sovereignty.
Oh boy, I
And
hope we go to war.
Trudeau did not fucking give anything away. Like, this is why Trudeau's popularity has just been tanking from an all-time high to, like, not an all-time low, but to pretty low.
You know what's interesting is how the left here in the United States absolutely seems to love Trudeau, while in your country, Canada, they seem to start to hate. Start
Fucking
to,
hate the son of a bitch. Yeah, like, I think the idea of Trudeau is a good idea. Okay, here's the thing. I like Trudeau as he's not a bad negotiator. I can respect him on that. Through the fucking or at least so far, he has chosen his words wisely with the with Trump on negotiations on free trade, and he's much wiser than our alternative NDP and some other candidates we could have had in the past that would have said inflammatory things. Basically, Trudeau knows when to keep his mouth shut and when to try and strike a deal. So, he seems like a good representative. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Kind of like how Obama kind of seems like a good representative on the surface, and in some ways he kind of was, but he has a lot of fucking dumb shit he's done. Like, so okay, I think there's a Chinese dollar. I think I can't remember exactly how it works, but we signed onto a fucking Chinese dollar that allows for easier trade that sort of supports it supports the Chinese oil. I don't remember all the facts behind it, as well as trying to increase more trade deals with China. Like, what I'm trying to say is, even if the NATO isn't going to spend more money, like, let's say I don't know, fucking Greece says that they can't spend more money. I think all of our nations maybe should put our forces with Japan, with Korea. We're putting this fucking burden on America that's kind of like, when you think about it rationally, it's unfair. Does that make any sense, or does that make no sense to you? Like, what I'm trying to say? I'm trying to say we should, even if we're not going to wrap it all up, shouldn't we be defending our allies and standing by them?
Yes, I believe we should be standing by our allies, and uh, also I don't think the United States should be basically not having trying to solve our debt problem by giving all our debt, all of our borrowing money from China, which I do not like.
China's a scary fucking motherfucker to borrow money from because you don't know how China's going to react if you say we can't pay it back.
Mm-hmm.
Like China's fucking crazy at times. Like this is a fucking they have like what the issue Korea has, but not as bad. They're like more reasonable, but they're no different than Korea. They have to seem strong. So if you said you can't pay back to, let's say, Xi Jinping might actually threaten war, not just to try and get the money back, but also because he doesn't want to look weak. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, honestly, offshoring your debt to China is kind of a scary thing. But at the same time, China has a much, much higher debt than America. It's China and Japan are probably the two highest countries in the world, I think. Rational? Yo.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, but anyways, yeah, just my view on it all. I think Canada should be supporting our allies more. I don't think we should just be like, I'm not saying we should not trade with China at all. I'm just saying even if we were to trade with China and make them more powerful, we should probably back up Japan, because what are we doing when we're just increasing China's strength? We're sort of screwing over our allies, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because then we're just making them stronger, doing more trade deals when they're already not being fair to our other allies.
Which is not very smart for Canada, because if they find themselves on the wrong side of a U.S.-China war, they're not going to be happy. It will end very, very badly for Canada.
To be honest, oh, sorry.
It won't be something like, oh no, we have to fight Canada and China. It will be, oh no, Canada surrendered after 3 days.
Yeah, honestly, it really comes down to one thing and one thing only: who's in power. In my opinion, if there's a war, nuclear war between China and the United States, I think there'd be some prime ministers that would just go, fuck it, I'm out. Now, I'm not saying all prime ministers would do that. Like, I know our conservatives would be gung ho for China, but yeah, I kind of honestly, I don't think everyone's like, oh, this China-America war, and in the Chinese, because I watched China Uncensored, in the Chinese news, they actually said a few times that a war between the U.S. and China is inevitable. What it comes down to in the next few years is if Xi Jinping stays in power, the guy who's in power right now,
Mm-hmm.
the war between China and the U.S. diminishes. If Jiang Zemin, who is the alternative, this is the guy that supported the Koreans, the North Koreans. This is the guy who did the persecution of Falun Gong and Tibet. There's actually Xi Jinping is trying to use Tibet and Falun Gong as an excuse to prosecute his political enemy. Basically, Xi Jinping, a lot of people thought he would be a reformer and a true communist and would sort of treat the people better, you know. But reality is human rights kind of cracked down a little worse. And reforming China's communism is nearly impossible because of corruption and because of the fact you have to seem tough in that type of political scenario. And basically, in the next few years, let's just pray the person who's in power stays in power. Because the person who's in power wants to do business with the United States. He's pro-business. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And if he doesn't, we're going to have to get ready for Fallout 4. Scary shit, right?
A little bit. I'm actually a nuclear war doesn't scare me for two reasons. I know it could, like, these two reasons could just become null and void at some point, and it actually become a super scary thing. But one, I do believe that everyone in the world except for Kim Jong-un is smart enough to understand that if they launch a nuclear missile, life on Earth could cease to exist for everyone. Because if one missile gets launched and lands somewhere, everyone else is just going to start sending missiles back to that place. And now allies get drawn into things, and it would be world chaos. So I think that kind of holds everybody at a little bit. They're a little bit more restricted when they're kind of coming to actually deciding if they want to do that. No one's going to start a war by sending over a missile, or hopefully even end one by trying that. And two, if they did, I know the rest of the world doesn't necessarily have all of these precautions, but the United States has, layers and layers and layers of missile defense systems. We are in other countries, we are in the ocean, and we are on our coast, and we are on our inland, prepared to shoot down specifically nuclear missiles and EMPs. So we're ready. Like we're not going to get hit unless someone does something to completely eradicate the entire U.S. missile defense system, which is next to impossible.
Yeah, but
a war could still definitely happen, but a nuclear war is a little bit more
yeah.
out in the ballpark.
Yeah, I think if China first just hit you guys with a missile, and if it was a non-nuclear, so actually, well, okay, how would a war happen between you and China without escalating to nuclear?
Because a ceasefire would be declared before it reaches that point.
Hopefully.
If it did not, like, a war between the U.S. and China would go almost one way. It would last for a few months. Eventually, people would drop off from supporting China because you do not oppose the U.S. and win. It just doesn't happen, except for one war where there was kind of a tie and we just stopped. And that was the Vietnam War. But outside of that, like, the U.S. enters and we're in it to win it. And we've made that the pattern in the last 100 years. And China, if they felt brave enough to fight us, the rest of the world may not be on China's side unless they show they're winning. So unless China gets the upper hand early, then the rest of the world will side with us or stay neutral. And when we just start hammering into China, because our let's just face it, our military is, probably 3 times as advanced as China's, despite whatever Canada may have given them.
Also, there's another thing too. Your military is insanely more healthy. You might have people come out of high school, elementary with like 103 IQ on average, but that does not change the fact that America's youth is more fit when they go to the military service, while China's youth is not nearly as in shape.
Yeah, and like also, let's say that they try to do a land invasion and they somehow get past, all of our allies with that would be, supporting us, and somehow they get through our entire navy. They completely invade Hawaii, take it over. They land in California. All right, now California, we might just surrender that. Then they can have it. But they go into any other state touching California, and they will be met with citizens that are fighting back with weapons. Like, not citizens that looted something and are trying to fight back. Citizens that are already trained with their firearms, as if though they're a preordained militia that has been existing as a resistance for 10, 20 years. The amount of Americans that just constantly go to shooting ranges and practice getting shots or practice. A lot of them are vets. A lot of them are friends with vets. A lot of them are old policemen or currently in the police force or some.
Your mic keeps cutting out there.
That's the thing, though. That's one of the things as a liberal I disagree with a lot of the liberals on. Is full-on gun control and gun-free zones. I'm not for it.
Yeah, because I mean, like, hypothetical, our military
shit. Okay, Rational. You hearing this shit?
Yeah.
And that's hypothetical. That's probably not likely.
Your mic keeps cutting off, Eisenwolf. What was that?
That was me being upset that my mic cut off.
By the way,
nobody's dead. Yes.
By the way, how does my how's my sound? I'm trying to see if my mic is working.
Good. You want to use something? One of my fucking one of my other half nigga buddies was in a debate yesterday with if it's okay to punch a Nazi.
Hmm.
Want to hear how hilarious the straw man was?
What?
Yeah, what was it?
Okay, so the person was like, okay, well, so we used violence in World War II to pretty much take out Nazis, so we'll just do the same thing. And his excuse is, well, Richard Spencer, he might say that he's not for gassing the blacks and the Jews, which, maybe he's just lying, that he maybe really does want to kill them all, these fucking, oh, I'm not a Nazi, but I'm a white nationalist type of people. But the thing is what he said, you know, yeah, well, these people did the worst massacre in history. And my half nigga buddy was like, well, that doesn't matter because that's in the past. You can't use that to justify your violence. And at the end of it all, he basically blocked him, saying that he was a racist. This is coming from some fucking, for all I know, probably some white liberal. For all I know,
Probably. It is typically. It's actually white women are typically the voice of anti-Nazism.
Well,
As far as like considering everyone as a Nazi, not actual anti-Nazism, but anti what they believe are Nazis.
well,
It is mostly white women and then white guys that are trying to be with those white women by being a complete and total beta.
at the end of the day, the way I see it is, push come to shove over time. And the same thing's gonna sort of happen with Black Lives Matter and Antifa. It sort of already is like because there was so much white guilt. Racial tribalism and racism was so acceptable for black people, but over time, racism it's not cool. It might be cool when you're hanging out with your fucking echo chamber, but when you head out into the real world and you talk to most people that have white friends, saying racist shit about white people just it's not cool, and saying racist shit about black people it's not cool.
Yeah.
And freedom of speech, it's what destroys those arguments because the best ideas will win.
Yeah, if you successfully victimize a group, now they feel like they have a right to fight you back. But if you just constantly say, no, you're stupid, and you don't take any actual action against them, they're going to lose members.
Yeah, it was a point. Yeah, it was a point that he was making was, oh, well, we'll be able to win. We'll be able to beat them up. There's more of us. And I was like, well, yeah, but if you beat them up, they're going to get more radical. Well, not me, but my buddy was like, if you beat them up and, they're going to get more radical, they're going to think that they're going to have to throw the first punch because they're going to be attacked. So by attacking them, you're just going to make them more radical.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, the whole idea behind the white nationalist population in the United States, particularly, I don't know about other places exactly, other countries, but in the United States, most of the white nationalists and the people that are affiliated with them and the neo-Nazis, they think that white people are being targeted to be discriminated against and to be replaced. Okay, and when you do something specifically that says white people need to no longer have these rights, they feel like they're right. They're like, wow, looks like we were proven right, you guys. So like that's just going to make more people that are kind of on the fence, or even more people that never considered it 5-10 years ago in the future. They might be like, you know what, actually I just got fired literally for being white because we needed more black people to hire. That maybe those white nationalists had a thing that maybe they were right, and that's not what we want.
I'm a fucking mutt. My family's roots goes back to like long. Some of my family's roots, that's like my white roots, kind of goes back to Canada for a long, long time, over 100 years. That's for sure. Back to the foundations. But here's the thing: I would never accept a job if somebody told me I'm going to hire you because you're black. I'd probably get up and I'd leave. Like that to me, that's just an insult. That's like saying your only asset is your skin. It's like, are you fucking serious? Like, this is the thing, though. A lot of people don't understand. A lot of people think Canada is a social justice utopia because we have some of our social justice warriors go down to the States and, campaign. But you guys do the same thing to us. So that goes both ways. you know, just like crime, you know, goes across the border. But the thing is because we don't have as much of a guilt complex with black people, most white people, like if a black guy says racist shit to a white guy, it's unacceptable. Like there's so many fucking racial slurs I've heard from white people, from black people on YouTube from the United States that I didn't even know it existed.
Yeah, we have some of the United States has some of the worst race relations as far as like truly diverse ethnic groups.
Yeah, but I think it's a little exaggerated at times. I think honestly, I think the United States is I don't think it's as bad as what you guys think. I think it's kind of bad, but I don't like look
No,
at Burma, look at Myanmar, look at fucking or look at India.
yeah,
Look
but
at
those are just two usually of the exact same peoples that just have different ideals, and you know they're separate enough to where you know
all right,
they
well
can see each other by the way they dress. But if
I'll
an
I'll
outsider
give you
saw it, they would
another
have no
example.
idea.
Hold on, I'll give you another example. United Americans in fucking Japan on Okinawa soil. You know the Okinawans want basically fucking killed the Americans that are defending them, as retarded as they are. There was an American who literally raped a woman and killed her, and now the Okinawans are profiling Americans.
Hmm.
Or in the you know, I was talking to this one fucking half black chick. Um, this chick's been around the world. She's you know she's wealthy. She's American, and I asked her, you know, where'd you experience the worst racism? And she actually said Eastern Germany, sorry, East not Eastern Germany, Eastern Europe, like the Baltic states, like Estonia and whatnot. Like there's a stereotype in Estonia that they don't like minority 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 people like from the United States in their military because you guys have military bases in Estonia, Latvia, like all those places,
Mhm.
and there's minorities there. There's black people there, and there's been a few cases of people trying to attack minority troops. Although not all minorities have experienced that. You know, I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
Because
Huh?
well, yeah, like racism like that. Like, of course, that's going to exist around the world. Everywhere has racism. Like, people are racist against people that are almost like, for all intents and purposes, exactly the same. Like people in Japan, or like where like the north of Japan hates the south of Japan. That's kind of true in the United States too. People in New York are pretty much racist against Southerners, but like it's not really a race, I know. But like bias against the out group is extremely common in human nature. But in the United States, it's really, really bad, specifically between white and black people in the media and in the news. Like if you go out in day
Yeah,
to
yeah,
day, you are very hard pressed to find one person being racist to another person, regardless of who is doing what to whom. It's
well,
just like in the media, we're constantly super self aware. Like if a commercial portrays a black person badly, they could lose every single person on that marketing team that okayed on it. They could be fired for a hate crime.
you
That's how
know,
bad it is in our media.
when I think about it, this is a bitter evil just desserts. And what I mean by that, I'm not saying this is right. I'm saying that in the like, okay, guess where a good majority of the racism I've experienced has come from?
Other black people?
American stereotypes.
Ah,
As a kid, I actually hated America with like a burning passion, and mostly because almost all of the fucking bitter racism I've experienced had nothing to do with Canadians. But I think you can sort of see what I'm saying. Like that was when I was a kid. You know, you sort of get mature, you sort of grow older. But I'm just saying, in the past, you know, sometimes the media would either exaggerate or what was the word Hillary used? Super criminals or something.
I'm not
I'm
sure.
just saying, in the past, you know, America used to promote normalization of I don't know. America's had a bad, unhealthy cycle of it. There's a push and pull of integration and assimilation, and black people in the United States just aren't. They're barely stepping up, but they are stepping up, but just barely. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I mean, you have to call them out, but at the same time, you can't create an expectation. Like another thing about IQ is if, let's say, if I told you a group of white kids that you are more likely if you're white to score lower on the IQ test, and if you're more likely to be less successful. And if I told all the black kids, and if the black kids thought that they were supposed to become more successful, it would play into their ego and self-identity. And like there was experiments with this with IQ where they told kids in a athletic test that in the United States, my buddy was telling me about this. It was an academic test to test your coordination, and the white kids did better on average. And when they told the kids that this was an athletic test, the black kids did better on average, and the black kids thought that they would do better in sports. Does that sort of make sense?
Yeah, I think you've brought that up before. I said
Oh,
like,
I'm so sorry. I repeat myself.
oh no, it's not a problem. That you basically stereotypes of whatever it may be, that they can have an effect on your how you
Egotistically view yourself.
yes, egotistically view yourself and how you react to certain things, like with tests. And as I think I brought up before, with like there was a similar thing with wearing glasses, like people who wore glasses. If they were to wear glasses, they tended to do better on tests. And the whole thing was because there's also the stereotype: if you wear glasses, you're smarter.
Yeah, you know, like if everyone's putting you up to this idealization of what you were supposed to be, and if you don't live up to it, then
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So you know, people idealize they idealize what society and what they are expected to become. You know, I mean, like with me, I wanted to prove to people that I am not a nigger
Mm-hmm.
because I wanted to prove to people I am Canadian, not nigger. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like I'm not gonna like honestly. I think like I do blame some rap artists. Hashtag not all, but I mean like rap artists that speak in very tribal manners to their people, like they're the true racists. Like
Mm-hmm.
this whole XXX Tentacion, it's nothing in comparison. Like when you start to convince people that you know you have to be tribal, you have to be ghetto, you have to be black, and if you ain't fucking gangster, you ain't black. Like I've heard that a few times in rap songs. Or what was that song with Beyonce? Time to get down with the gangsters and forget about the wanksters. Like
Mm-hmm.
how the fuck is that not racist? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I see all these fucking you know, all these fucking white people playing it, and I fucking hate that shit. Or I remember Pitbull's song on Holiday Inn, and the song was about cheating on women. And I remember in my fucking business class, a bunch of women started playing that, and they were all dancing to it. And at that point, I sort of lost some respect for women. I realized that that song was really popular with women. Like they want to, they're encouraging womanizing, and you know, I think you see what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, I understand. I think I'm gonna be ending the stream because I guess some other people I guess we're not gonna show up because they are busy. So is that okay with you?
No, I'm actually absolutely fine with that. I hope I didn't bore you though.
No, you helped help keep the stream going.
Fair enough, you know.
I know Eisenworth is gone, but I would like to thank also Eisenworth. Please subscribe to his channel if you're watching this, and his channel is well by the same name, Eisenwolf. And he also has a Twitter and everything. So go check him out. And would you like to say your stuff?
Yeah, my name's Unpopular Thought. My YouTube channel is Unpopular Thought on YouTube. Skeptic, sometimes news, and I try to cover news stories that not everyone covers, and you know if something gets overlooked by the media, and I also like to you know I kind of go after certain factions, hashtag not all of the alt right and social justice, blah blah blah. Anyways, I'm left wing and Rational Outlaws right wing, and I don't really care what your political beliefs are. So yeah, go over to my channel. So yeah, I'll see you later, Rational. And I kind of want to do that. I want to create that video that you sent me. I want to add my part on it. By the
Oh
way,
yeah,
mind if we go off live and if I just talk to you a little bit about that really quick?
Oh yeah, I'll just close it out in just a sec. Let me say my part. All right, this is Rational. You've been watching Rational News Live. Remember to follow me on all my social media. That includes Gab, VidMe, Twitter, Facebook, VidMe, Minds, all that. And I'll see y'all later.